Hi, welcome back to Close Up, everyone. He is one of the top political minds, not only in New Hampshire, but the entire country. And last month, Dave Carney part of the mass exodus from the Newt Gingrich campaign. He also happens to be very close with a name that's popped up quite a bit recently, Texas Governor Rick Perry. We're going to talk about all of it this morning. Dave, thanks for coming on the program. Good
Thanks
to see
for
you.
having me, Josh.
Well, so let's go back a little bit, though, with the Newt Gingrich campaign. What happened? I mean, everybody bailed. Yeah,
well, it seems like a lot more than a month ago. It's interesting. It's only been a month. Really, it came down to this. They had gone out and sort of recruited a really good group of people around the country to work on the campaign, and there was sort of a grand overall strategy that everyone sort of agreed to. And then as we started to implement it, I just think the Gingriches, decided they wanted to try something less traditional and more unconventional. And if that's the case, they didn't need to have all these political people around them, didn't have to have a big infrastructure. It was just costing them money. If they're not going to have a voter contact program in a state, there's no reason to put in an infrastructure to do that.
So you wanted to use his big name to do big speeches and kind of
social media and internet and things like that. And it's a nice idea if it works. It would be great because I think campaigns are so expensive. It really makes it hard for people to anybody to get in the race. But it's a big country, and in order to communicate out there and to travel and to do the sorts of things you need to do, it does take, unfortunately, millions of dollars, and it's hard.
And when you get involved in a campaign like this, I mean, were you disappointed how things played out there? I mean, Newt Gingrich is certainly not a political novice. He's been in Washington for a long time, knows how to win elections. And that must have been a little surprising to you, the way there's two different philosophies moving forward.
Well, I think it was, I guess, unfortunate we didn't sort of air these out more directly in the beginning, because I think, it would have been much clearer if, he had indicated that's how he wanted to spend his time. It would have saved everyone a lot of aggravation and a lot of heartburn for the campaign and probably for the Gingriches as well. But I think people underestimate how difficult it is to run for president. The president is not like, running for governor 50 times harder than it is, to run statewide. Sure. It's a massive undertaking in terms of fundraising and political networking and all the media that you need to do in order to get your message out there and all the paid media you need to do to reinforce what you're doing on the stump. And it's just not something you can do, as a hobby. It has to be a long-term, full-time, all-in commitment. And it takes a wear and tear on a family, and I think it's really difficult. And the process is I think, is getting to be so expensive that it really windows out a lot of really qualified people who would be excellent presidents.
And you've seen the poll number, and now you've had a month to reflect on it all. I mean, do you think that former Speaker's heart is in this the way it needs to be?
Oh, I think his heart is in it. I think he's an unbelievable optimist. I think he truly believes that he can do something different than no one else has ever done. And I think he's going to give it a 100% try to do it.
How would you characterize the state of the campaign right now?
Well, I think it's a work in progress. I mean, I think they're trying to restructure and reconfigure. The problem is in the early states, in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, activists want to be with a winning campaign. And to them, they have certain preconceived notions of what that is. And so I think it's going to be harder to get going on the ground when you don't really have an infrastructure in place to help support that. Like I said, it's a school rule of thumb. Volunteers are great, but they're not free. You need to help volunteers. You need to recruit volunteers. You need to have things for them to do. You need to reward them with coffee and a pizza after work and all those kinds of things. And that all takes infrastructure and it takes resources. And it's very rare that a national campaign can do this on the back of an envelope.
Now, as you look at it, we'll move on to another topic. One more question, though. What needs to happen for him to reinvigorate this campaign? Because obviously it's headed in the wrong direction, at least in terms of the poll numbers.
Right. I think, I would, if I was involved, I think I would tell them they really need to focus on 2 or 3 things and hammer them home. If you're only going to do it through earned media and social media, you got to pick 2 or 3 things and just hammer those home. You own those issues. And right now they're sort of at a smorgasbord of issues, and I think they need to think about the 2 or 3 things that are most important to whom they think are their voters and focus on that.
Oh, you're certainly no dummy. As soon as you left the campaign on the local level, state level, national level, everybody's like, all right, Dave Carney, who else is he close with? And that's Texas Governor Rick Perry, who, obviously enormous amount of buzz, just scored 4% in the recent poll. He hasn't even been to New Hampshire yet. Where is that right now, as far as you know?
Well, the governor's, taking a very close look at it. He said a few weeks ago that when the session in Texas got over, which was about a week ago, he would sit down and take a serious look at it. And in the meantime, we've been trying to put together the information to help him make a good decision, trying to see if there's infrastructure to raise money around the country to be competitive. Obviously, you need millions of dollars to do this, and to be able to put the political structure in place in order to support a candidacy, national candidacy. And then, he's going to take that data and he's going to, talk to his family, and if he decides to move forward, make sure they're all on board. Mrs. Perry has been very supportive. She has for a long time. I mean, a year or more.
Sure.
So it's, it's not that as, he's. The family is 100% supportive, but once you get all the things in place and you go to take that leap.
People don't know a lot about this guy. I mean, you got some national coverage back during Katrina. He was obviously very helpful, absorbing a wave of humanity coming from Louisiana after the hurricane there. But beyond that, he doesn't have a whole lot of name recognition as far as his background, things along those lines. How do you think that he would play on the national level? He's a Southern governor. Right.
Well, I think if you were going to take Republicans and say, okay, let's hire someone to be the nominee to take on Obama, I think the ultimate candidate that group would select would be Rick Perry. Why? Because the economy and jobs are the most important thing. While the rest of the country under Obama lost something like over 2 million jobs since he's been in office, there's some hundreds of thousands of jobs that have been created in Texas. Since the recession, according to the Obama administration, ended in June of '09 to today, something like 47.8% of the jobs created in America were created in Texas. And so it isn't as if he has a theory or a white paper on how to help create jobs. As he says, the government doesn't create jobs. You create an environment that lets the private sector create jobs. I think because of that, and because he has a 10-year track record of doing things like balancing the budget and cutting spending and not raising taxes and the job record, I think that is a perfect foil, a perfect balance to what Obama's are. And we've seen what he's wanted to do, what his ideas are, to spend more money and try to create jobs through stimulus and the Keynesian approach. And I think the country's pretty wary of more spending. They're concerned about the debt, and they're concerned about the deficit, the current deficit. They're about reforming entitlements, and really about jobs. When something like one out of every 4 homes is upside down on the value of their mortgage, and as you sit in your office in your cubby hole and you look around and you see all the empty cubby holes, it begins to worry on you. How many Friday afternoons can you have a cake for the new guy leaving your company? And this is affecting people all over the country, and I think that's why I think the economic jobs message that Perry has, were he to run, would be pretty.
So you think if he's in it, he'll win it?
Yeah, I do. I think he's got to be good. You got to run a good campaign, and you can't make a lot of self-inflicted mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Everyone says things they regret, and they misspeak, and they don't take you have a debate performance where, man, gosh, I wish I had done something different. Those things are human nature. But you have to run a decent campaign. You have to be consistent. You have to be able to take your message to the voters, because I think Republican voters are looking for someone to take to Obama on his policies and his economic record, and not personally, but on his job record.
Sure. All right, well, we have about a minute to go. So as we sit here today now in July, your feeling, this governor well, you know him, he's a friend of yours. Is Rick Perry going to be a candidate?
I think it's 50-50. And I think by sometime this summer, he's going to either, fish or cut bait. He'll be in or out. And if he's in, he'll run, a campaign in every state, aggressively campaign, and can be here in New Hampshire as well as elsewhere if he gets in.
All right, lastly, about 30 seconds. So if he doesn't decide to run, what can we expect to see from Dave Carney? You going to watch this play out, or you?
I think I'll sit on the sidelines and criticize. I'm very good at that.
All right. Dave, thanks very much for joining us on the program. Have you back, especially if there's any announcements to be made.
Okay, great. Thanks, Josh.
Good seeing you. Thanks very much. All right, we're going to be right back with an update for all the things